My journey into real estate is interesting. My mom got her license in 1983. It influenced me a lot. I watched her build her business through high school. I did kind of tease her a little bit about putting her face on the business card back in the day. So, but I didn't want to get into real estate in the beginning. I wanted to be in acting. I wanted to be in music. I love all those things in the arts. And I kind of went into school. I traveled the world for a year with a group called Up With People. It opened my eyes to so many cultures and great friends for 35 years now. I studied abroad in Denmark as a high school student. And then I traveled with this group called Up With People all throughout Europe and the States. And then when I finally got myself into college, I went to school at University of Arizona. And I'll never forget, it was during the first Gulf War, 1991. And that was the first time I experienced war on television, watching the Gulf War when Saddam Hussein was invading Kuwait. And just watching that as a 21-year-old kind of impacted me. And I wanted to go to Israel. I had a passion to understand the Jewish people and a heart for Israel. So I studied abroad in Israel for a year, my junior year in college. That changed my life. That's where I met my wife. She's from the States, but she was on the same program with me. We were both studying there. We came back to the States, eventually got married, had a few kids, and I was working in corporate America. I had gotten a job at Xerox in sales. I had worked for a couple of different corporations, and I realized that wasn't me. I wasn't the corporate climber ladder. That wasn't my thing. And I kind of moved into a little bit nonprofit, worked in higher education. I worked as the director of the Lehigh University's international programs, got to send college students to study abroad for a number of years, got to develop programs in Australia and New Zealand, and I loved it. It was exciting. It was fun. I worked at Beaver College before it became Arcadia University down there as well for a number of years, helped build some of their programs and attract students. So there was a sales component to it because I was working with parents, working with students, sending them abroad, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed those years. But the birth of my third kid and the economy and trying to make ends meet, I was like, this isn't really going to work. It's not enough. And my parents were doing real estate at the time here in Pennsylvania. And they're like, Chris, we're very busy. It was 2004. Why don't you get your license? I was like, great idea. So I got my license, started doing this part-time. And then all of a sudden in 2005, that's when I made the decision I'm going to go all in. I'm going to leave my W-2 paycheck, leave my health care, my benefits, my paid time off, and dive 100% in to a commission lifestyle, which is very different. If any of you are 1099 employees, you know what I'm talking about because there's not that comfort level of having a paycheck or having an income. And it's all reliant upon what you're going to do to build your business. And that was a big leap. We had just had our third kid. My wife was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? So it was kind of a faith step off the cliff, if you will. Everything was going great. And then the financial crisis of 2007 really hit. So that was kind of a debacle to live through where I lived right in Telford at the time. I remember walking my dog and reading the news that said every seventh house in America was in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure. And I was like, this is unbelievable. It was kind of like this mind-blowing experience where real estate that I was now 100% relying on as my income and to help people through that was now shifting like the world had never experienced. And so I got really good at helping people through short sales and foreclosures. And that time frame was very different in real estate. It was super challenging because you're going into someone's home and it wasn't about like staging, decorating, let's put this on the market, this is going to be great. It was like, okay, I know you paid this for it, but you might get this now. And it was a very different experience. And there was job loss. There was the stock market had crashed. All these things were affecting everyone's lifestyles. And they were having to sell a lot of times at a loss. So that was a challenging few years. I think a lot of real estate agents got out of the business. I made it through by the skin of my teeth, I think, some years. There was a couple times I remember my wife saying, maybe you should get a real job. Because it was that challenging to make a living in some of those years. Once we got through that, 2010, 11, things started to change. But what I love about real estate is the relationships. I think that is really what got me through all those difficult, challenging years. I mean, my income went down like everything else in America. I think everyone's income went down. People lost a lot of money. It was a difficult time economically in America. But when I think back to that, the relationships I got to meet and make during those years were still very powerful to me. And you're helping people through a very difficult transition. and trying to get, I used to say a lot of times during that time, to get the monkey off your back, which was the debt of this home, and try to offload the home quickly and get it sold. But going forward, things got a lot brighter. I think, 2012, 13, 14, those years, my parents decided they wanted to retire and get out of real estate. So that was interesting. I was like, okay, they're like going to become snowbirds, get out of the business and kind of move on to a different phase of life. And at that moment, I remember talking to my brother and Todd. He's my preferred lender. He works with Cross Country. And he was like, Chris, you really got to hammer down on exactly what you want to do. And I was like, you're right. Looking at creating my own vision of what does it mean to be on the Chris Hennessy team as a real estate agent. And I created my own team at that moment. I remember hiring my first assistant, and she was fantastic. She was with me for 8 years. And those years were great. There were a lot of growth, a lot of challenges, but really honing my craft and saying, what do I want to be? How do I want to do this? How do I want to do it better for my client and make it real enjoyable? And I think a lot of people on my team help me make this experience better for the client. Whether you're selling a home, buying a home, it's a much more streamlined process. And I think the one thing that you can learn as a real estate agent is that it's not all about you. It's not about yourself. It's about the people you serve and the people that you surround yourself with to kind of make you that much better. This can be kind of a lonely business, I think, in real estate, because you're not going to the office with everybody. And I mean, you kind of do, but not really after COVID, so much going to an office. And you're kind of on your own. And you're running your marketing, you're running your bookkeeping, you're doing your own, kind of running the show you're wearing lots of different hats. And it can be stressful, it can be lonely. I think so surrounding yourself with really good people that help make the experience better, make you better, and learn a lot more about making it a better experience for everyone. Yeah, I think, like I said, real estate can be kind of a lonely business at times, and there are days that are tough, like in every business, in every job. And the only person that's able to change that is yourself. And so I think you have to be your own best motivator, if you will. And I think one of the things that has helped me through the tough times in real estate, when you've got challenging situations, challenging clients, challenging homes, you've got just family stuff, personal stuff, all these things are going to play a role in how well you do. I've always had a coach. No Olympic athlete, no athlete is ever going to hit the Olympics or get to the top of their game without a good coach. And so being in real estate, you need to have a good coach that's going to really push you through and focus you on the goals ahead, making your business better, building your own business. And I think one of the things that's helped me immediately when I'm having a rough day is to get out with the people. And I'll stop by a past client and get out of my own head and say, how are you doing? How's the house? It's been 5 years. Oh my gosh, the addition looks great, or the pool looks awesome. And those things really kind of rejuvenate me. I think, I've learned this in the business, and the personality of a real estate agent, most of us are extroverted, if you can't tell. And I think extroverts are people who truly gain energy from being around other people. And that's so true of me. I think I gain energy by being with other people. And so if I'm by myself too much, I get a little bit more like off kilter. I get a little in my own head. And so for me to be out with other people, whether I'm with a client, with friends, and one of the things I love to do in my business is create client events, client appreciation parties. I've done them for years, and it's a really lot of fun because I got to work with you for 3 months or 6 months 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and I don't see you all the time. So inviting people back to my client appreciation events is a lot of fun for me because I get to see people and meet their kids as they're growing up, and it's just so great, and it's a privilege to do that. I guess the changes that I've experienced being in real estate for 21 years, it's a lot. I mean, obviously the onset of the internet, and Zillow didn't exist when I started. Everybody was like, what the heck, Zillow? Realtor.com, all these things that are common tools now for real estate or common terms in real estate, they didn't exist then. I think there's been so much change thrown at us and thrown at the world with technology, with the onset of the smartphone. I remember I used to actually, when we would handwrite the contracts, we had the same contract, but we would fill in the blanks with a pen, handwriting it, and getting everyone to wet sign every document. And then I would copy it and hand deliver it to the listing agent or bring it to their office and drive it around. And I remember doing that in 2005, 6, 7, 8. And now it's like all DocuSign. We're moving documents quickly. We're getting electronic signatures. One of the funny things, I remember this, when DocuSign was kind of new and unknown, we had some attorneys weighing in at our office when I was at Remax at the time. And they were like, I don't know if this is going to be legal to allow someone to email a document and sign it electronically, and you don't know it's really them. Look how far we've come from that. Everyone's docu-signing things all the time. Those are some of the things that have really changed. I think you've got to grow with those challenges and be able to stay up with technology. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the lurch. You're going to be left behind. And that's critical for being a real estate. You got to stay on top of so much tech. One specific situation that made me confirm like that I'm in the right choice, I don't think it was one specific thing. I think when I've met friends of mine from high school or that people who grew up with me, my closest friends' parents who now see me as a professional real estate agent, and so many of my friends that know me for so long before I was ever in real estate said, Chris, this is the perfect role for you because you're so good at it. You're a people person. You are caring. You're trustworthy. You're doing these things. So I've been told by people that knew me long before I was in real estate that this was a perfect fit. I do think that, there's lots of things that you can choose to do in life, right? And somehow I ended up here, and I think it's a total blessing. And I think it was because of the circumstances in my life and where I was, like I talked about with my family. But I definitely love it. I know that I'm in the right place. And every time I get to help a family through this transition of real estate, because that's really what real estate is. It's about transitions of life. It's not simply about a home being sold or bought. It's transitioning through life. And when transitions happen in our lives, that's when real estate happens. And so it's not been one critical thing. It's just been a lot of different confirmations along the way. I guess if I were to describe a mission statement or my purpose of being in real estate is again back to guiding people that have trusted me to help them through a transition in life. That's going to be able to come through whether we sell a house or buy a house or choose not to buy or sell at that time. And I've guided people through that maybe it's not the right time to do this, and I think that's where I would say I'm a little bit different. Like, okay, if it's not the right time to sell because you've got so much going on in your life and maybe we should put this on hold for 6 months or for a year, I'm going to tell you that. And, and maybe if you're open to that idea, then that's a good process. The other thing is on the buying side too, is like, there have been so many times where I've guided buyers through and saying, hey, maybe it's time we put this on hold. You save a little bit more money and you look a different direction, or life changes. I get that. So I guess I'm just looking at it as being flexible and being able to guide people through this transition of real estate. As a real estate agent, obviously we all are professionals and we have our professional hat on, but what's really important to me is my family. I mean, I think my family has guided me through this and has been with me through thick and thin. My wife has been by my side through the whole time. I have 3 amazing kids. They're all in their 20s now and starting lives of their own. And I think when I'm introduced to other families and I'm looking at them and saying, wow, okay, their kids are similar ages to my kids, or they're in the same phase of my life, or they're back at the beginning when they're having their first baby. And I think about the importance of family, because the thing about real estate is we occupy these spaces called homes, and it's simply just walls and hardwood and drywall and windows. But what makes it a home is the people that reside in it, and all these memories that we create. I'm sitting here in my living room right now, and I think about the memories at the dining room, or the memories in my hallway, and the family dinners that we've had here, and the cousins, and the dog throwing up, and all these crazy things that we go through in our homes. And then you sell it and leave. When I was a kid, we moved quite a bit. So real estate, I moved from one house to the other, And now as an adult, moving my own family from one house to another. And I remember we sold our house 5 years ago, right in 2020. And I walked through the house after it was empty and clean. And I just had a kind of good cry because I was like, wow, it's just a house. And I do this all the time for all my clients. What's the big deal? But it is emotional. It's very real. And it's a place where you have memories and then you move on. And so, it has a place and a time, and it will always be there because you can go back. And I love that. I've had a lot of clients go back and say, hey, can I go back and take a look at the house? And I've visited my old homes. I love it. Something about that space that you occupy for a time in your life is very real. It's very personal. It's emotional, and it carries that weight and with you forever. So the home's going to be there even though you've moved on. But I think that's powerful. And I think families and homes go like this. I went back to my old house in California when I was in third grade. And I took my best friend from Pennsylvania. We went back to visit. We were driving around LA. We were out there like for spring break or something, visit his friends. And I said, oh, Dave, let's go by. I want to show you my old neighborhood. When I was in third grade, we lived in this house. And we go to the house. And I was like, this is it. I know this is it. And I go up and I knock on the door. And literally, we go in. The guy opens the door. I said, hey, I used to live here when I was a kid back in the 70s. He's like, oh my gosh, come on in. He was super friendly. He let us go in. And we're walking around the house. And I'm like, I pulled my buddy aside. I said, this is the wrong house because my bedroom was down. Like the configuration of the floor plan was different because all the houses were the same. But I was like, this is not my house. My backyard was different. And I'm shaking the guy's hand and I was like, thank you so much. We got to get going. And we go out and we were busting up laughing. And then I called my parents because we didn't have cell phones. And I called them from like a payphone. I said, what was our address? What was the address on there? And they're like, oh, it was 1183 Chateau Avenue. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like 1185 or something. I was 2 doors down from the wrong house. And it was hysterical. It was just too funny. But it was kind of crazy how I wanted to go back. I don't know what drove me to want to do that. But anyways.